We call to the presentation table the first matter, the Judicial Branch Outreach Power of Democracy Steering Committee Interim Report. This is not an action item. There aren't any materials in your binder. And I ask Justice McConnell, when all is seated, to please introduce the panel. Thank you.
So it is a great honor for me to be here, to see so many old friends and new friends. And I appreciate your taking the time to listen to our presentation. I am going to introduce, this is my favorite school in the whole state, Brawley Union High School. And they are inspirational. They inspire the Power of Democracy Task Force. So let me just introduce them. I'll start with Mr. Jose Flores, who is the teacher at Brawley Union High School, who is making powerful citizens out of his students. And next to him is, let me get it right, Christian Nunez, who is a senior and a student. And next to him is our superintendent out there, Mr. Simon Canales, who was the principal when we first met and is now the superintendent of this remarkable school district. The Power of Democracy is a nonpartisan, non-political, statewide civic learning initiative led by the Chief Justice. And it's driven by leaders that we have from the judiciary, from business, and from education. And I'm very honored to be here with you today. I just want to recognize Debbie Genzer, who is our powerhouse former social studies teacher who provides the chief staffing for this effort. The Power of Democracy was established by our Chief Justice to oversee her civic learning initiative. And I think you mentioned, yes, she does like it when we're all teaching kids about the courts and about our democracy. The Power of Democracy fulfills recommendations that came originally from the Commission for Impartial Courts that was established by Chief Justice Ron George. Some of you may remember that. You may have even been on that commission. It was chaired by Justice Ming Chin. And in our final report, I chaired the Public Information and Education Task Force. We recommended that the judiciary take a leadership role in bringing together all of the different advocacy groups and stakeholders in California to improve civic learning, mainly at the time because people didn't understand the court's role in our democracy. They didn't understand that we were a third branch of government. We had a self-interest as courts and judges in better educating our youth and the public in general. And the Judicial Council unanimously adopted our recommendations. So a leadership group was set up, and the Chief Justice, Tani Cantil-Saccoy, adopted this mission with a passion, which I'm sure you've seen, and established it as Power of Democracy. We like that title. We're talking about our democracy and protecting and preserving the democracy. So the members of that Power of Democracy task force included Frank Damrell, many of you know, was a retired district court judge in Sacramento. Danelle Taha, who's a former 10th Circuit Chief Judge, who is now Dean at Pepperdine Law School. The Honorable Stacy Boulware-Uri, whom we're going to lose in a few months. Sonia Gonzalez, who is the Executive Director of the California Bar Foundation, Secretary of State Alex Padilla, and others. We always have had a student member. Our student is graduating, probably is going to be President of the United States at some point soon. And so we have to get a new student member. The role of the Power of Democracy has been to develop champions for civic learning, to establish strategic communications, to convene leadership and advocacy groups, and to develop resources. And our guiding principles are to bring people together to elevate civic learning in California. The first activity that we engaged in was, well, first of all, we did the awards, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later. But we did the Summit on Civic Learning in February 2013. The chief and Frank Damrell talked about it, and the chief said, let's do a summit on civic learning. So we did a summit on civic learning. It was powerful. And it was in February 2013 in Sacramento. We had leaders from every sector of the community that we thought had a stake in this. We had Alan Zarenberg, who's executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, on a panel with Tom Sines, who's head of MALDEF, and the head of the SEIU, and I think, Stacy, you were on that panel as well. It was an amazing panel. Everybody agreed this was important. And at the conclusion of the summit, we actually had 4 legislators come up and say, we're bringing this bill, we're going to bring this bill. And the state superintendent of public instruction and the chief justice announced the formation of the California Task Force on K-12 Civic Learning. And the task force, which I co-chaired with Dave Gordon from Sacramento County, superintendent, was charged with coming up with a report and recommendations of things that can be done to improve civic learning in California. And if you don't have a copy of the report, and by the way, the student on the cover is from Raleigh Union High School. She's now a senior at Cal State San Marcos. If you don't have a copy, I've got a couple of extras, and I'm happy to give one to you. Anybody can have one, and we have more. And I urge you to take a look at it. Pat Kelly, you were on the task force.
I was indeed.
Well, yes. One of the major findings was that it's not just the courts that are concerned about this, but many stakeholders are concerned about this. And so the task force was very diverse. We had the representatives from the PTA, the California PTA. I think we had presidents of all these organizations. The Chamber of Commerce, I mentioned Alan already, the California School Boards Association, the California Teachers Association, SEIU, Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, the president of the state bar, Pat Kelly. And then we had a number of advisory members, and they came to many of our meetings also. They weren't formal members, and they were on their own nickel. They included Junior State of America, Constitutional Rights Foundation, Center for Civic Education, which was originally established by the State Bar of California, a number of teachers, including Mr. Flores, and California Council for Social Studies. So our final report came out with its recommendations, and I'm not going to go over the recommendations. I think they're posted there, and I want you to look at them in the report. This is such a great report because it's written in language I can understand. And it's like a cookbook, and you can go through it and say, what can you do if you're a parent, if you are a teacher, if you are just a caring citizen? And the report was released in August 2014, and the chief charged us with implementation of that recommendation. So that came back to the power of democracy, which, by the way, oversaw all the work of the task force at the time. And I don't believe in doing things just for form, so I don't want this report to just sit on the shelf. We've been distributing it widely and working on implementation. On the state level, the English language arts framework has been modified. The framework is what tells the teachers, tells them how to teach English language arts, and we got a lot of civic learning incorporated into English language arts, thanks to Debbie Genzer and others. They can learn how to read by reading the Constitution, for example, or the Bill of Rights, and they can learn a lot from reading the important founding documents. We're continuing to partner with the state Department of Education and the state superintendent, and we're now focused on history, social sciences, and assessment, because some of you may have read that testing was dropped, and we think that there are other ways of assessing students' success and how much they've learned. In addition, because so much was transferred to the local level, the governor wanted the local school districts to work on improving education. We set up 6 pilot counties, Alameda, Butte, Fresno, Los Angeles, Sacramento, and San Diego. And in each pilot county, we've established a civic learning partnership. You're going to see Carolyn Caetti later on. She's on the Civic Learning Partnership in San Diego. Juvenile court judges are fabulous at this because they already know everyone in the community, like Stacy. And each of the civic learning partnerships is approaching the subject in a different way, meeting with school boards. Butte, for example, the presiding judge there has got all 13 school boards in Butte County to adopt civic learning resolutions. In San Diego, we got the San Diego Unified, which is second largest in the state, to adopt a civic learning resolution, and they have hired full-time staff, and they are working on improving civic learning in all of their schools. We also have 6 more counties that want to have civic learning. And by the way, these partnerships are a judge, usually you know, a PJ or a judge who's really committed to this work, a business leader, and an educator. So each of the partnerships is very, and then they're pretty broad-based. We invite people to come. If they come and want to work, we put them to work, and we have them working with the local school districts. There are a number of other counties that have asked us to establish partnerships. Humboldt, Imperial, Mr. Flores is pushing on that. Orange, Stanislaus, Yolo, and Ventura. We have judges from all of those counties who are interested. And I've met with the leader of the tribal courts who's very interested in establishing a partnership, and we're working with her in connection with Humboldt County to get something going. We established the awards program, the Civic Learning Awards, to recognize those schools that are already doing a good job of teaching their students. And Justice Hull and Judge Rubin recently attended the awards ceremonies that we had in their school districts. The chief goes to the top 3 schools in the state. We got her out to Brawley. And in fact, her comment, I hope you don't mind my quoting this, is that she didn't know you could drive that far east in Southern California and still be in California. And
3 hours.
3 hours from San Diego to Brawley, right. And many of you I know have visited the award-winning schools or written letters of commendation for the schools. And we use those schools to model good programs so that other schools can learn from them. This year we had 87 schools, which was, you know, it's a program that's building. The first year we had something like 22 applicants, and they were all high schools. The first 2 years we just did high schools. The next 2 years we did elementary schools only. Now we're doing all of them. So it's K through 12. If you want to if you have a school that's doing a good job, and we can use that as a model for other schools, have them apply for the Civic Learning Award. And so I mentioned already today that Brawley Union High School is one of our top award-winning schools. It's won the award twice. The first time was for the, I can't remember the names of the different awards, but it was distinction, okay? And then the last time was for the top award. And we even took our court out and held oral argument in their gymnasium. Their auditorium has been condemned for seismic purposes. It makes you think of all these courts that are collapsing around the state. And it's my great honor to introduce the superintendent, Mr. Canales, the teacher, who is a great teacher, Mr. Flores, and our outstanding student, Christian Nunez, and they will take over the microphone.
Well, first of all, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. And you don't know where Brawley's at. It's the desolate, barren, uninhabitable place. I just happened to go to the gentleman's room up here, and there's a nice picture of our courthouse, which I did not know which was established in 1907. And right below it in captions, it says it was deemed desolate, barren, and uninhabitable. So that's where we're from.
We're still there.
We're still there. I want to show my appreciation for the vision of the blueprint to our Chief Justice in conjunction with our State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, which I see practically on a monthly basis. And everywhere he goes, he mentions that the blueprint is not if we want to do it in our schools, it's a must do. So it's strong emphasis there. Also, thank you and appreciation for Justice McConnell and Dave Gordon for having the leadership of running the task force meetings. And as far as the blueprint and the impact, in a few seconds, I'll go through real quick a PowerPoint of the impact on students, but also I wanted to mention the impact on adults and teachers as myself. It's great capacity building and empowerment. I've been teaching now for 25 years, quarter of a century. 5 years has been civics, and it even has transformed me to the form that not only had the pleasure of being on a task force for the blueprint, but last year, due to the hard work of our students, the governor appointed me as a quality instructional commissioner. So I am now flying, as my superintendent knows, once or twice a month for 4 years to Sacramento. And that puts us in a unique situation because this past month, I was able, with other colleagues in the commission, to embed, we just finished the framework on social studies. So it's a strong emphasis on civics across the board. We are currently working on the science framework, and I'm pushing that there as well. We have strong emphasis because one thing people need to understand, scientists, science teachers, they're adamant about their subject matter, and I'm trying to get them to understand if it's so important, the concept that they learned, once they learn it, the students have to do something with that knowledge, the relevance, the application. So the little tweaking of civic engagement is the students know there's a need for environmental literacy, environmental issues, and once they get engaged with the community, city council, county supervisors, whatever the county might have issues with, then that's the civic portion. It's a very little minute tweak, and you get civics in across the board, across all curriculums. So now going to the slideshow here. What we see here is a lot of local engagement. This is mirrored in the new framework for social studies. The social studies framework, I think, that was last established in 1998 was a little bit outdated because it had a strong emphasis on federalism, which is awesome and important, but I think the students need to get the bottom portion of government first, beginning with themselves, their family, their school, their city, county, state, gradually growing towards federalism, pushing for relevance. So here we have a strong commitment, and we have students that donate time above and beyond my classroom. We have between 50 and 100 students showing up to school board meetings. We had one 2 days ago. Sell out. We should maybe charge it for admissions because people are waiting outside in the hallway. And the students are well-versed on the etiquette as well. So they are engaged on what the school board's doing. It's their community. They need to be engaged. Along the same lines, they are also heavily involved in city council meetings. So much so that, again, large contingent of students have been showing up. When it used to be 5 and 10 people per meeting, now we're having, again, at city council, between 40 and 60 students showing up. And one thing that transformed them drastically, the evolvement of this, has been getting away just from simulations. Simulations are okay, but if you make them tangible, it's even better. So our kids decided, why not have someone run for city council? So my 150 students help with campaigning, voting drives, registrations, etc. And in the picture there, you see them, and there's one city council member missing. The young lady to the left is Ashlyn Howdegi. Her grandma wanted to run for city council. In this past November, she won by 17 votes, wow. And she is now on the city council. Talk about reaping the rewards and seeing democracy in action, not just by simulation, but actually going out and doing it. And the last one there also, we take it to the county. Our county seat is El Centro, and they go out, and our students know, and more importantly, these people know my students. They know every single school board member, every single city council member and their mayor, every single county board of supervisors, our assembly member, and our senator have also visited my classroom. There's strong communication and partnerships across the board. As you know, lately, not this past year, but big drought in our state. So our kids took it upon themselves. We have a project where we track. Second semester, I had to teach economics to make it tangible to them. We do mathematics and we learn about economics, but we learn about local economics before we go to the macroeconomics. So one thing we do is the students bring in their water bills and they track the consumption of water month by month. And this past year in the Imperial Valley, as you know, there were some cities in the state that got fined. I don't want to mention them, but they got fined for overusage of water. In the Imperial Valley, some of the cities did not get fined, but they did not meet the goal that the governor wanted them to meet. Brawley was the only city that met the goal, and it goes back to the interaction of the students. To the right there also, there's besides the classroom, our superintendent gives us a lot of support, and we have formed not only an athletic partnership with the students, but an academic and civic partnership where he purchases nice little civic patches that said Civic Scholar, and for graduation, nice little graduation sashes for Civic Scholar, but they have to fulfill a portfolio that has to do with outreach to the community, giving back to the community, to younger kids and to the elderly, and different mentorships that have to be done across the board with court, our Superior Court, etc. And you see one there. One of our strongest supporters there is Honorable Judge Ruth Montenegro, and she does a lot of outreach to my classroom. She opens the court for us to go literally on a monthly basis. So they learn not only the civic part, but then they're great because they do the college and career aspect as well. When they interact and partner and mentored by them, they know exactly what it takes to become a judge. And then the honor of going every year, it's been a tradition. We are invited by Justice McConnell, and we take groups of students and we see her in action. And not only that, but then we have like an hour-and-a-half luncheon where these justices mentor our students. I could not teach that from a book with that much relevance. This past year, we've had plenty of success. We've had students, mind you, these are not AP students, these are regular students, the majority English language learners, new to the country, but we had 3 top 10 finalists for this competition on community engagement by the youth. So we were invited to come up last month to Sacramento, and we were there at Senate floor being presented with the award for the students. They do a lot of partnerships with nonprofits, giving back to the community. There you see the kids giving out food. They do this every other Monday the entire year. One of our biggest partners is Comité Cívico, obviously going back to the civic portion. And we have a strong relationship because they're strong in the environment. So we get the environment through them, but then our kids get involved and help craft and write policy with them in conjunction with the representatives. So when they write an assignment, they don't write it to me. I'm not the ultimate authority. Their audience is the people of California and the people who can make the change through policy. So much so that we have a strong partnership with the EPA, Region 9 EPA, locally, a couple blocks down. I meet practically once a month with Priyanka Patak. She goes down to Brawley to mentor our kids on STEM through civics. We don't lose the civics portion. They have open communication with Gina McCarthy from the EPA. She wrote a letter to the kids right there. And the number 2 from the EPA, Janet McCabe, went down there to Brawley 2 months ago and met with our staff, our students, our council members, our county, as they consider the big issue, as you know, of salt and sea and air quality, the border issues that we have. Our students get involved with that. So there I'm presenting to Janet McCabe the coexistence. There's also an environmental literacy blueprint. So I'm showing there how it could blend, and in our classroom, how we use both the civic blueprint in conjunction with the environment. They're one and the same if you do it properly. To take it to a further level, to promote what these fine ladies had established of providing awards for civic engagement and civic excellence, our students and our superintendent and myself, what we've done is to kind of further civic education for the kids that are below us, elementary. We have begun our little quasi-Brawley or Imperial County little civic award ceremony, and we go out and we visit these schools and visit what these students in different grade levels are doing. And due to the money that we get from nonprofits like Kiwanis, like Rotary, Seroptimus, etc., they donate money, and I buy those very patriotic trophies for these winners and a nice certificate which has the emblems of the people that donate, the clubs that donate money to us. And this here has grown to the point where we're trying to take it countywide, but I always do it. My deadline is October, because the state deadline for their awards is November. I do that for a reason, because, okay, now you did it for me, now forward it over to the state. It takes a couple of little tweaks here and there, and you have a couple of weeks to get it going. So we're trying to further what the state wants the schools to be doing, but first getting it at the local level. And the visitations are not done only by myself, but we get our dignitaries from our county and our city, our mayor, police chief, et cetera. They also visit as a delegation, obviously not as esteemed as when our Chief Justice visited Brawley, Justice McConnell, but we have our little delegation that visits these schools, elementary, kindergarten, junior high, and we visit and push it towards eventually the state competition. So there's our contact information. And now I'm going to leave the floor to my superintendent. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Chief Justice, members of the council, Justice McConnell, thanks for having us here. And my purpose here today is putting flesh to the body. And so you understand what we're doing and how this initiative begun, who we serve. And I think with that, you'll find that it's a very replicable model that you can use back in your home school districts and counties of residence, especially in a county like Imperial County, which we've noticed is deep southeastern part of California. We are in close proximity to the Mexican border, very rural agricultural community. The school district that we serve is a high school district, over 2,000 students. Of those 2,000 students, 90% of those are Latino. Over 75% of those students are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And over 50% of those students, their first language was a language other than English. So that's the student population that we serve. That being said, we had a significant number of those students who were struggling academically. And we know that something needed to be done differently to inspire and enhance opportunities for that clientele. A large portion of those students were students who are new to the country, especially with our close proximity to Mexico. With that, we began to focus on an educational initiative to enhance opportunities for those students in a population that had been traditionally underserved. And we wanted to focus on enhancing opportunities for them to be educationally successful and make it to college. So we focused on increasing opportunities for them in A through G aligned courses in their native languages, which culminated in a senior experience with Mr. Flores a number of years ago, when I went to him and I said, this is where we need to start to make a real difference. So I need you to be the impact as these students transition from high school into the real world. And he was like, well, what are we gonna do? And basically we're gonna flip the script. The textbook is gonna go by the wayside, and it's gonna be all about real world experiences. And we're going to focus on infusing, especially this clientele, first and foremost into our school community, which then in turn would make an impact in the community that we lived in. And so our effort and emphasis was all about producing informed, active, and engaged citizens. We wanted our students to claim their voice and actively participated in making a difference in the community that they lived in, and doing that through the relative real-world experiences that and relevant experiences that Mr. Flores talked about. Ironically, the last couple of days here in San Francisco, listening to the debate last night, you know, in light of the national political landscape, it's so important for our students to become informed and actively exercise their political voice. And so that's what this initiative is all about. So on our way over this morning, we're walking from the hotel in Union Square, this area. We passed and encountered a monument to the United Nations. And ironically, it embodies a lot of what we focus on. And so I'm gonna paraphrase some of those words as it pertains to our initiative. The Civic Initiative at Broad Union High School recognizes the inherent dignity and equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family. We understand this is the key to the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in this world. And as a further example of what we're doing and what those words are about, I'd like to introduce a senior at our high school. Came to us 4 years ago as a new immigrant to this country without any English as a skill set. And he's going to talk about his experiences, Mr. Christian Nunez.
Good morning. What an honor to be here today. First, I'd like to talk about how civics has impacted my life. It enhanced my leadership skills, being out there to help others, being involved, and participate in those events that sometimes seem boring to our community or to the class that we're in high school, but they're not really that. Things that bring up your self-esteem because you know you're doing the right thing. Public speaking. When I came to this country, I never thought that I was going to be in a place like this, speaking English when I only knew Spanish. And so with that, I'd like to share this speech with you. When I was a junior in high school, I always knew that I wanted to do something great. It all got more interesting when I met my United States history teacher, Mr. Jose Flores. The first day I entered his classroom, he started teaching us about the Bill of Rights. And we even learned the preamble, and we presented it in front of the class. With those experiences, I knew that I enjoyed politics and government, and that I needed to get involved. Since Mr. Flores has established a partnership with the nonprofit organization called Comité Cívico del Valle, I started to participate in their activities. I also joined the Key Club, his Key Club, as vice president. When last school year started, when last school year was about to end, I decided to run for student elections for Associated Student Body President, where I unfortunately lost the election. However, I also ran for Civics Club and Key Club, where I was fortunate to win. Also, I was chosen as the English Language Advisory Committee President by the students, which is a great honor for me. When the school year began, I was enrolled in one of Mr. Flores' civics class, where we learned about journalism, government, and economics. As one of his students, I had the tremendous honor of meeting Congressman Juan Vargas and Assemblyman Eduardo Garcia. Listening to the story of these great men and how they became what they are now brought in me that desire in me to help my community. I began volunteering at our local Chamber of Commerce and the farmers market every month. I also volunteered with our Mayor Donald Wharton and Councilman George Nava in their re-election campaigns. All those hours helping them made me decide that I could achieve something great in my life. This led me to get more involved in public service. I began attending city council meetings, which helped me meet very important people in my community. We also have a partnership with a local county courts system, and our mentor is Judge Ruth Montenegro. At times, it was hard to keep up with my schoolwork, swimming season, and all these outside activities. As a result of these experiences, however, I have been able to help my community and accomplish personal goals. In October of 2015, I acquired an internship with Comité Cívico del Valle. At first, it was a little challenging to get things done, since we were working on an environmental summit that was going to take place in our local school. Along with Luis Olmedo, the Executive Director of Comité Cívico del Valle, I learned how to organize a summit and all the hard work it goes into producing a successful event. Overall, I'll say that my experiences in civics class has changed the path of my life, and that I now know the law and politics are the careers I want to pursue. To conclude, I'd like to recite our class motto, which is this. We make a commitment not to be spectators. We get involved by becoming more civic-minded individuals to contribute to improve our community. Thank you.
I want to say that this civics initiative, which has been spearheaded by Justice McConnell, in my view, is truly not only just civic education and civic learning, it's civic engagement. And I think the shorthand term that I use to describe it to people is it's leadership training. It's teaching people, it's engaging our young people. I've had teachers and principals tell me that their civics programs have changed the culture of their campuses. I had one in particular recently tell me that on our on our high school campus, we have no single law enforcement officer because our students are so trained in problem solving, peer court, and other matters, and understanding and critical thinking and two sides and debate, that it's changed not only their environment, but how they treat each other and how they view the world. And so there's so much I could say about the noble work, but it truly starts with the leaders. It starts also with the faculty. It starts with you, Mr. Flores, and you, Mr. Canales, to change and train people to understand the world we live in, the importance of a judicial system, and our future leaders will come into the legislature, and then that Chief Justice in 3.0 will not have to explain what the judicial branch does. Thank you so much for your work. We are admirers, and may you go forth and replicate this model to all of our school districts. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to call on Justice Slough and Assemblymember Bloom.
Thank you. I just wish to say to you, sir, that you referenced the Bill of Rights and you referenced civics. But what you truly are is the flesh and blood and the heart and soul of the Bill of Rights and the concept of civility and civics. So I just want to say thank you, because you remind us of why we do what we do, and you remind us to do it better every day. So thank you.
Assemblymember Bloom.
Chief Justice, thank you. And this program is truly inspirational, and it follows your leadership, Chief. This is a program that you've inspired. It was really great to hear about the program from the top to the bottom. This is a young man who's not on the bottom, obviously. He's rising to the top rapidly. And I just have one request for him as someone who's followed a career, as he says he'd like to do, both in law and politics. My request is that you stay away from my assembly district, at least for the next 10 years.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Judge Lyons.
I have 3 words for you. Bravo, bravo, bravo. I want to commend you for an excellent presentation and very inspirational. Please continue to do what you're doing and take it hopefully throughout California. Bravissimo.